What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Decent Garage and welcome back to another project today. So today we're going to be working more on Prospector Bob, trying to get him tuned in a little bit better, work on that P-pump. So here's where we're at with that. In the last video, we tuned the AFC a little bit, tuned some of the smoke out, which helped, but we still have issues. I'm not seeing more than about 25 pounds of boost. And I just feel like the top end is being cut off. So my theory is something is governing either the fuel or the air. Okay, those are the two main components of that, of actually building the power. So the fuel can be governed by the governor springs. Okay, the air can be governed by the turbo through the wastegate. So what I did off camera is I actually took a pair of vice grips, clamped the hose of the wastegate shut to basically disable the wastegate. So then I took it out for a drive with that vice grips on the hose, and the boost was no better than about 24 pounds. So the wastegate wasn't the issue. So my diagnostic mindset is down to two options. Either the governor springs are limiting fuel, limiting the fuel in a higher RPM range, or there may possibly be a boost leak. This has a power stroke intercooler, so I know it's had intercooler work done on it. So we could have a boost leak going on as well. What I want to do, I am going to do a boost leak test on this, but I ordered a boost leak tester. I know you can make them, but I ordered one. It should be here in a couple days. So I have the governor springs here already. So what we're going to do in today's video is I'm going to change out the governor springs, show you guys how to do it, and we're going to see if that fixes the problem and maybe tells us through the process of elimination that the boost leak is not the issue. So let's go tackle the governor springs real quick. There's a couple videos on this on YouTube. There's not a lot of them doing it on the truck. Most of them are pulling a P-pump off, doing it on the bench, which is a little bit more simple. So let's go try this on the truck and we'll get it changed out. First things first, I've got the truck in neutral, got the wheel chalked. So the governor springs are here on the driver's side of the P-pump, and we're gonna have to move a couple things to get in there. We're gonna have to move the fuel shutoff solenoid, which is two screws that were the same two screws that held the AFC on, and then one back here. And then there's also a lever for the fuel shutoff solenoid back here that we'll have to take off. But let's take the fuel shutoff solenoid, and then I'll show you that lever, and then I'll show you where they're at. Okay, and one more thing, so there's also a little cotter pin right here that holds the fuel shutoff solenoid onto the lever, so we got to pull that off. All right, now we have to take this lever off right here, so there's another 5/16 screw right there that holds it on. It is keyed, so just pull it off. You don't have to keep track of where it was keyed at. Go. All right, now if your pump is stock, there will be this kind of a wire braided across right here, but this is the cap that we need to take off. It's 7/8, or I believe a 22 mil fits it. Yep. So we're gonna take that cap off, and then we will have access to the governor spring. So really, it's not too bad getting access to this with it on the motor. One word of caution though, with doing this with it on the motor, when you open this up, you're gonna lose, I read online it's about a quart of oil, so we're gonna get just something small right here to catch any oil that drips out. So I'll grab that and then we'll take this off and see what we can see. All right, here is our little oil catcher. Brought to you by Used Turkey Meat Container. All right, now we've got our 22 mil on here. Nice and easy. Let's see what we have. All right, so now you can see we have a black hole here. So what we need to do is rotate the engine over until we see the governor spring. So I'm gonna rotate the engine with the alternator. That's why I have the transmission in neutral. So we'll rotate that over until we see the governor springs, and then I'll point that out to you. All right, there we go. Wipe some of this oil off so we can see. All right, so we have this wave nut. We need to take it off. I'll show you why it's called a wave nut here in a second, but what we need to do before we take it off, there's a groove on both sides. We need to get a caliper and measure from the depth of that groove to the top of the stud. We'll sneak a caliper in here. Right there. Oops, got to turn it on and zero it, I guess. Okay. All right. All right, now we're ready to take the wave nut off. Sorry about some of the background noise. Got a bunch of neighbor kids riding their little dirt bikes around. So there are companies that sell kind of a modified screwdriver for this. I just get 2 mini screwdrivers, one there, one here, and start twisting. Okay, so no more resistance, so I'm gonna now switch from my screwdrivers to a little magnet. Just like that. There we go. So there is the top. Now here is why they call it a wave nut. I don't know if the camera's focusing or not because it's way down in the engine compartment, but it's got waves on it. So as it compresses down into the springs, the waves kind of lock into place every quarter turn or so. But that's why it's called a wave nut. All right, now we have that off, so we're going to take the top retainer out. Just use your magnet. There we go. Now we're going to pull the springs out. So there's one. Now if you have stock springs in here, there's going to be 2 springs that come out of the middle, okay? You'll notice I have a third one right in here. And that's because these are already 4K governor springs, because I did this install already and I lost the footage. So you do want to leave this very last outer spring in there, even if you're putting the 4K in. Let's get the bottom retainer out. There we go. Now also, if you're taking your stock springs out, there will likely be a couple shims underneath, very thin washers under that the bottom seat. So make sure you stick your magnet in there, get those out. Mine has 3 in there. So yeah, you guys may think this is, I guess this is kind of funny, but yeah, I filmed doing this whole thing, putting in the 4K governor springs, and I lost the footage. So here's the deal though. You know, my hypothesis is that the fuel governing is what's causing some of the issues. I'm going to put a video up at the end after we get some springs put back in here showing you how that turned out, and I'm going to tell you now it didn't solve the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the stock springs back in here so that when we solve the problem we can do a before and after video of stock springs versus 4K springs. So I'm going to pull the 4K springs out and I will proceed with the video as if I was putting 4K springs back in. Very similar, I'll tell you the differences, and then we'll go from there. But at the end of the video, I'll show you the driving footage of what it looked like after I put the 4K springs in, and it did not solve the issue. So hang tight, let's get some springs put back in here. In my case, I'm putting stock springs back in. In your case, you're probably taking stock out and putting 4K or 3K in. Now, if you're putting 3K and these come as a set, 3K is just putting these two springs in and leaving this one out. Adding that spring makes it a 4K spring. I am going to run 4K springs on this truck because I'm not going to over rev it. I drive quite conservatively, and here quite soon down the road I'm going to put 60-pound valve springs in here anyway, so we'll be safe. But I'm going to put the stock ones back in, so after we fix whatever issues going on, we can do a video of stock springs versus 4K springs. But this video will be just a tutorial on how to install them. So let's proceed. All right, so if you're putting 4K springs back in, get those shims out. All right, so we have our stock springs with the shims and the pedestal. Put that right there. Now we're gonna put the top retainer on. There we go. And now we're going to put our wave washer back on. There we go. And what we have to do is tighten this down and remeasure with our caliper till we get that same measurement again. There we go. All right, so now what we have to do, doing these governor springs, there's two sets. There's one on this side, and then 180 degrees on the other side, there's another set. So we have to rotate the engine over and do the exact same thing. So I'll do that real quick, and then we'll just button it back up, put our cap back on, put our fuel shutoff solenoid stuff back on, and we'll be good to go. Alright guys, that is the P-pump governor spring install. One word of wisdom, don't let anything fall down into the pump. Actually, when I was putting the second set of stock springs back in, the shims fell down into the pump, and I was lucky enough to use a magnet and fish them out, but I've heard that's usually not the case. So be very, very careful. But if you're switching from stock to 3 or 4K, you're taking the shims out anyways. All right, so now let me show you the footage of driving with the 4K springs in here. So I thought when I drove before that the fuel was governing and was cutting off, but you'll see now I get a lot more smoke in every gear. I get less boost. The most I saw was 14 pounds of boost, and the white smoke after the black smoke goes away got way worse, and it almost causes this sputtering feel and sputtering sound. So my theory at this point is we have a boost leak. So my boost leak tester should be here tomorrow or the next day. So we're gonna get trying that as soon as it gets here. But let me know, is there anything else I'm forgetting? I'm saying boost leak. We know it's not the wastegate. We know it's not the governor springs. Is there anything I'm not considering? So let me know in the comments below. Thanks for hanging tight. Sorry this video is a little later than I would have liked, but I lost that footage. I really appreciate your guys' support, and we will see you guys in the next video.